My name's Tom Beckett. I'm the founder and director of Better, which is a platform where anyone can learn how to live more sustainably. I welcome Conor Bryant, who is from Loop Innovations and the Rubbish Project, for us to talk about how can we use the circular economy to help create a better century. And I wanted to spend Conor is a member of Better and also a kind of active entrepreneur in this space. And we wanted to spend this time to speak a little bit about what the circular economy can do to help us tackle things like single-use plastics, although there are a number of other areas which we can talk about as well. This is all ahead of our event, which we're going to be running on Can the Hole That Single-Use Plastics Be Filled? And so we're going to have this short podcast for Conor to explain to us a little bit more about the circular economy. So welcome, Conor. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, what work you do, and tell us a little bit about your story, I suppose.
Well, Tom, thank you very much for having me here. And sorry that I'm so dressed up, but it's rather cold even here in the office because well, it's cold at the moment and we don't put the heating on until a short window in the evening. So for now, I'm rather wrapped up. But so what do I do? Well, I'm a product designer, but foremost, I'm a sustainability and environmental campaigner. My mum was an environmental campaigner, and so I've grown up in this world, championing for environmental issues. And since I've started now, I've got two businesses, both focused on providing sustainable solutions to some of the world's biggest problems. The first one, Loop Innovations, we're a design consultancy. I work with other product designers to redesign products to be more environmentally friendly. So this can be making them from recycled material, designing them to be recycled at end of life or repaired, or designing things so that they never go to waste at all. And unlike other product design consultancies, often our advice is less products and not more. We work on designing systems as well, because sometimes we don't need more products to solve a problem, we need a better system. And that's part of designing truly sustainable solutions. And that's a core focus of the business. We will only work with companies who are trying to improve the sustainability of their products. We won't just make your product look better. The core focus has to be improving its environmental impact. And through our work in Loop Innovations, we noticed that there was a sort of big demand from the events industry to improve their specifically waste management and the amount of waste being generated on sites. And so we did a bit of research, met a lot of people from the industry, and partnered up with a waste management company who has an excellent reputation, Grist Environmental. They've been doing waste management for about 45 years, but events for about 15. They send 0% of their waste to landfill, and they don't own an incinerator. So it's expensive for them to send. They do have to incinerate some waste. We're not in a world at the moment where things are fully recyclable, but they incinerate as little as possible because they don't own an incinerator. Their focus is on recovering recyclable material. And they're very open about that. So you can come and look around their site, which is, if you're not aware of the waste management industry, extremely uncommon. If you ask anyone in the waste management industry to show you what they do, you won't get anywhere near. Whereas Grist were very happy when we sort of started asking questions to show us around and to really give us an understanding of how their business worked. Anyway, we partnered with Grist Environmental and started the Rubbish Project. And the focus of the Rubbish Project was to provide circular economy environmental solutions to the events industry. Anyway, that's quite a lot of background, so I'll leave some room for some other questions.
Very good, Conor. Thank you very much. And you've also been quite an active activist in your lifetime as well, and kind of been involved in a few actions. So this kind of complements some of the things that you've been doing. But we won't kind of dive into that in too much degree. But so tell us, Conor. I mean, everyone's going crazy about reducing the use of single-use plastics. This is obviously a massive issue. If the account. By 2025, plastics pollution is going to increase tenfold. If this carries on by 2050, the weight of plastics in the ocean will be equivalent to all marine life. ever since Blue Planet and David Attenborough's incredible piece, people have just been completely trying to find ways to cut plastics out of their life and becoming activists around this kind of issue. I just initially, what's your response to that, and how do you, I mean, as an environmentalist and as someone who's working within the industry?
Well, my initial response to that is that you're totally right. We have a massive problem, but you said it yourself there in your second 2 points after the first one about single-use plastic, is that the problems, the specific problem that we are trying to solve in this issue is plastic in the ocean. Okay, plastic in the ocean is very bad. It's a terrible thing. There are 7 giant ocean gyres around the world where huge amount of plastic waste is circulating in the ocean. And this is an issue that I've been aware of for quite a long time in my life. I helped design I was quite a kid, so helped design is a bit generous. I went to some meetings where they designed a boat to go visit the largest of the gyres, the Pacific Garbage Patch, called Plastiki. It was designed by Michael Paulin, the guy behind the design.
Quite a depressing venture.
Yes, well, I sat in on the meeting and did some drawings, but it was very interesting to hear about that issue. And they were very aware of that ocean plastic issue sort of 12 years ago, and it's really only climbed in people's interest, especially as you say with the Blue Planet effect. And it's a massive issue, and we really do need to solve it. But I don't see it as a plastic issue so much as a waste management issue. I don't think we should be dumping any waste in the oceans, regardless of what it's made of. I would see it as very bad if we were dumping the same amount of aluminium or paper or even biodegradables, because while this is not being covered, if you were to dump large amounts of biomatter into oceans and rivers, that's also very bad. That also has lots of negative consequences. And the other issue that's very important to consider is that ocean plastic is a massive issue, but it is not the only environmental issue that we face. And if we think about all of these issues in isolation, then we may come up with solutions that solve one problem but exacerbate the issues in another. So take, let's stick with plastics. Plastics are very bad in the ocean. So you might think, let's get rid of plastics, that gets rid of that problem. However, plastics are also incredibly low carbon. They're very low carbon to produce, very lightweight, and therefore low carbon to transport. So from a climate change point of view, they're quite a good material, especially when you compare them to the most common alternatives. You think paper versus plastic. Paper may sound better, and especially from a fish's point of view, it's better. But it actually has a much higher carbon footprint, as well as all sorts of other knock-on effects, like contributing to deforestation and excessive use of water and land. Anyway, I've gone a bit far into your question again, so I'll repeat it.
I mean, and so would you be saying that we should, I mean, I suppose the kind of key question is, should we just be cutting plastic out of our lives? Or is there actually room for plastic in a future economy? I mean, you kind of said that it's important to tackle climate change, but surely we should just cut out single-use plastics from our lives. I mean, there is room for obviously having plastics in our lives and kind of the bodywork of the car, or in the kind of in utilities which we have in our houses, because there's long-term uses of those pieces of plastic. But surely we should just be cutting out the use of single-use plastics.
Well, I mean, it's a good question, but again, I think that the issues that you are trying to solve are the issues of waste and pollution, and the issues of carbon and energy use. And if you look scientifically at how our current materials and products and systems work, and look at the solutions that people are proposing when they suggest that we do away with plastic, the science just doesn't add up. Take the paper bag, plastic bag example that I used. People want to replace single-use plastic bags with single-use paper bags. Now, from my point of view, that's not solving the waste problem, because you've just switched it to a different waste stream. But also, a paper bag takes 4 times as much energy to produce. Okay, it's 6 times as heavy, which means the vehicle that's going to be transporting it around is going to be using more fuel because it's carrying a heavier load. but worse than that, it's 10 times as bulky on average, which means if I wanted 1 lorry of plastic bags, that's the same as 10 lorries of paper bags. So not only is the carbon footprint of producing paper much higher than plastic generally, but the carbon footprint of transporting paper products is also much higher. So what that suggests is that we can't just switch from a disposable plastics model to a disposable other thing model without combating the two main issues, which is what happens to our waste once we get rid of it and how much energy it takes to create the products. And that's what we're trying to solve. You know, the emotional response to plastic in the ocean is that plastic as a material is bad, and that therefore we should get rid of plastic, and that removes the problem. And I understand that, and that, you know, we don't want plastic in the ocean, and there is lots of room for reducing the amount of plastic waste we have. We can all see examples of unnecessary uses of plastic. But really, the worst example is our unnecessary disposable culture. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's plastic or paper. We shouldn't be using resources at such a disposable rate. When you go to a restaurant and they give you 10 paper napkins, one under your plate, one wrapped around your cutlery, one when they bring you the drink, one when you sit down, one when they put it under the chips for some reason, you know, that's wasteful. It doesn't matter, it's not plastic.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we need to think about these, you know, these issues with what is the best solution, proper scientific solution in each area. Sometimes it will be plastic, sometimes it won't. Another example, I guess, I would give would be milk. One of the things that people are commenting on at the moment is food packaging. Food packaging is getting a lot of attention. And so lots of people are asking for plastic-free packaging on food, for example.
Yeah.
Abandon the milk thing and just go for the general picture, and we can come back to milk later.
Yeah.
So one of the big demands is removing plastic packaging from food. And I can see that there are lots of examples of excessive plastic packaging on food. Think Ferrero Rochers. A Ferrero Rocher is about 60% packaging. I mean, you're literally paying for 60% other stuff and 40% chocolate, which I think is a very good deal. But packaging our food actually plays an incredibly important role. Our food is produced in a just-in-time system all over the world. If you go to the supermarket and look at the provenance of any of the foods that you've got, it hasn't all come from England. And while that has its own environmental issues, there are also actually, again, scientifically nuances and difficulties. There are some advantages to a global system, as well as stuff being produced local, but that's a conversation for another time. But generally, produced local would be better. But anyway, we have an international system where all of our food comes from abroad, and also when you produce food, you're producing it in large quantities, you have to get it safely to the supermarkets and stores. And then when people buy it, you want it to last as long as possible in their homes, otherwise it is likely to go to waste. And the thing is that the packaging that we put on our food plays a really important role at all of those stages. We need our food to arrive at the supermarkets intact, otherwise if it gets damaged on the way there, it gets wasted. And food waste is a massive issue. The carbon footprint of wasting food is much, much higher than wasting plastic. A plastic bag is made in a fraction of a second out of 0 point something grams of material. It takes very little energy and very little material to make. Conversely, you know, carrots, cucumbers, vegetables, avocados, you know, they take weeks, months, energy, water, time to grow. The carbon footprint of that is huge. And so wasting our food is, from a climate change point of view, infinitely more criminal than the small amount of packaging that was required to keep that food safe.
So surely the kind of the response to that is like, let's make some more durable, longer lasting, maybe plastic containers which we can put this food into. When people pick it up from the supermarket, they don't have to pick it up in a plastic bag. I mean, you know, I suppose there's a kind of question here about, like, if you're doing a kind of longer lasting side of things, surely wrapping everything in plastic bags can't be a good thing. So there must be different ways of doing that. You know, we talk about single-use plastics from that perspective. I mean, maybe you can respond around the milk the milk point you started on.
Well, I have no argument with bags in a supermarket. I mean, of course, I think that people should be going shopping with their own bags that they I think that giving away disposable bags in a supermarket that as a sort of common, the standard practice doesn't make sense. I do think that facility should be available for the rare off chance that people don't, but they should have to pay for it, and pay quite a lot, and to disincentivize. And also hopefully we can get to a cultural shift where we do all bring our own bags. So it does make sense. There are some issues again around that, around carbon. For example, a tote, those cotton tote bags that everyone is replacing them with, they're wonderful if you reuse it about 500 times.
Yeah, this is what I've heard as well, yeah.
So, because cotton is an incredibly energy intensive material to produce. The problem with that is that now cotton bags, people give them out like crazy. You go to any sort of eco store or eco fair or even design fair or business thing, everyone's decided, oh, plastic is bad. So companies now, when they give out their things, give them out in tote bags. That is it's 500 times worse for climate change, literally.
And then we've got all of these issues around the fact that we've got these thicker bags, which people seem to be disposing of more often now than was expected. So although we've got rid of the kind of single-use bags, these kind of longer-lasting bags, people tend to kind of be buying quite a lot of and then throwing away. So this is such a quagmire of kind of difficulty, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, how do you respond to? I mean, we've kind of got. I mean, the statistics on it are like 9% of the plastic which we actually put into our recycling bin actually gets reused or created again. So, I mean, it gets put back, reused again, and like the rest of it is either going to landfill or being burnt. Now, I mean, that is criminal from the perspective of climate change. It's also criminal from the perspective of getting it into our rivers and oceans. So
touched on a wonderful point there. So why is that a thing? Why do we recycle so little currently? Well, the answer is economics. Aluminium, we don't have, when we recycle aluminium is a valuable resource, and we don't have very much in the world. Even if we recycle 100% of all aluminium that goes to waste, that's only able to supply 30% of our demand. So we still have 70% of our demand that needs to be from virgin, extracted from the ground. So even with 100% efficient aluminium recycling, we're still 70% extraction. But that's why it's so valuable. Conversely, with plastics is they're incredibly cheap to produce, and that's because of the low energy thing, which in some senses is an advantage. And of course, cheap also means has allowed access. Things like healthcare. Lots of our medical devices are made out of plastic, and that has made them affordable for developing countries and people all over the world, where it previously wouldn't have been. So cheap is not necessarily bad. But the thing is, it's really cheap to produce virgin plastic. It's quite expensive to recycle plastic, because the way that it ends up in our bins, the way that it's very thin, it's very lightweight, which is an advantage all the way till it gets to your bin, because of course for all the transport, etc., it's very good that it's thin and lightweight. But when it gets into your bin, thin and lightweight is not great, because recycling is done on weight, and if you're going to recycle something, you want to get a load of weight of material back, because that's what has its value. Now, plastic recycling is a technology that we've had, and recently people have started developing properly because of our sort of awareness of it. But there has not been enough demand for recycled plastic materials and products. Nobody goes out and goes, hey, my car needs to be filled with recycled plastic, or my printer, or my computer, or my TV, or my plastic clothing, because remember, most of our clothing is polyester, so it's the PET. If we don't demand recycled plastic products, there is no incentive to recycle the material. There's no demand for 100% recycled. So why would a company pay more to recycle material for their product when their customers don't demand it or care, seemingly? And now that needle has shifted, and you can see it across the supermarkets, especially the packaging of, especially things like the detergents, Methods, Ecova, they're all going sort of 100% or trying to go 100% recycled material. But that shift has been really slow. And as a result, there has been very limited demand for plastic. Now, the one thing that there is a big demand for is PET, plastic bottles. And that's not really because here in the UK, but because in Europe, recycling has really picked up, and plastic bottles are being recycled into everything from clothing to new products. And that means that there is, in the UK, our recycling rate for plastic bottles is, I think, level with aluminium cans. So plastic bottles are getting recycled at a very high rate. It's the other plastic that currently, no one's saying, hey, I need recycled cling film, or why aren't all of my shopping bags recycled, or my bin bags, or all these other things. If we don't demand recycled material, then what are people going to do?
Yeah, I mean, so you think we need to create demand in order to be able to, I suppose, drive down plastic? But I mean, sure, this is all about the cyclic argument. I mean, there's no large-scale plastic recycling facilities in this country, right? Like, there's no, most of the plastic which gets recycled gets put into big bales and exported overseas for recycling, in inverted commas. Does it demand for us to create massive recycling facilities which can tackle this stuff, or what's your view on that?
That's not strictly true. There are quite a lot of large recycling companies here in the UK, but as the general focus is on industrial waste, waste from industry, post industry waste, because it's cleaner and less contaminated, and they can get it at scale. And the problem with our domestic waste has been that our council infrastructure is fragmented. We have huge number of different districts that all recycle and collect different things and have different sort of processing capabilities, and therefore it's actually it's hard to turn and there's the mess that there's made, but it's hard to turn post-consumer waste into a usable material given this fragmented system, because proper recycling happens on scale. When you've got a country like Germany or Holland, where they've properly focused on having a system across the country, they can recycle material in much higher quantities, and therefore they can justify having these much more impressive sorting facilities. So we need our infrastructure, and there's a big role for government to play in that. And as you said, the one part I'm saying that people need to demand recycled products, but of course, really the other side is that we should be legislating for that. And the EU has done a great job on that. They've set the ball rolling. They've said by 2025, all single-use plastic must contain 30% recycled content. Brilliant. That's wonderful, because it sets the minimum bar, and hopefully people will realize that therefore the maximum bar should be 100% recycled.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if you get people to start to transition towards the 100% recycled, you get this wonderful transformation where instead of having 8% of all material going to waste, you've got the closing of the loop. And the thing that's great about that is that it will create demand for all of the waste that's already out there. If we start to demand making products out of 100% recycled material, and everyone goes that way, then we're having less and less virgin material produced, and more people wanting waste. And therefore, you not only have to clear up the waste that's already out there in the world, it's sort of essentially a mining process, and it incentivizes us to go for things like cleaning up the ocean and collecting plastic waste in the developing world before it ends up in the ocean, which should be a key focus. And really, and then shatters the demand for virgin things, but also means that there's demand for recapture, because of course you've got to keep the system going. So you then stop the stuff from ever going to waste. And that's why the circular economy is such a exciting proposition as a solution to all of our waste issues, not just plastic, because it reduces our demand on unrenewable or raw materials that we're extracting from the planet or Earth, and allows us to efficiently maintain a system that we can continually improve, so that we use as little resources as possible and waste as little as possible. And that's mimicking nature. That's how the natural world works. The circular economy is actually a very nature, it's a biomimicry inspired, concept, because the whole natural world is filled up with cycles. The water cycle, the way when we think about, biodegradable things and the way they biodegrade and it feeds the soil and comes back. Now, metal is never going to biodegrade and turn back into metal. Recycling is our way of doing that with non-organic materials. Non-organic materials are not bad. They're just, their cycle is different. Anyway, again.
That's. I mean, the whole idea of a circular economy is less understood, I suppose, to a number of people who might be listening to this, and I suppose the idea really is that you create a kind of system which just allows for nothing to go to waste at all. That everything it comes through a kind of reuse and recycle kind of structure. And I suppose, how much are you an advocate for things to be recycled or to be reused, or for us to cut down on like the flow of these things? Presumably,
I'm an advocate for all three of them, because those are all tenets of the circular economy. The circular economy is not just about recycling, and I want to make that clear. The circular recycling, again, and on the hierarchy, is not the highest stage. Things like reuse, repair, simply, things like charity shops are a wonderful example, because that's a sort of, form of essentially just handing down or passing on, which is, like recycling, but without really any need for sort of additional energy or processes. That's brilliant. But what we need to do is we need to work out in which scenarios those things work and in which scenarios they don't. Reusables is a good solution in lots of areas. There are lots of situations in which we should reuse things. But there is also a large amount of areas where we need disposable items. Okay, we need the ability to have disposable packaging, things that, and when I say disposable, there'll be people sort of shrinking. I don't mean go to waste. I mean, it goes in a bin and is returned back into itself and recycled. That is reuse. We're reusing the material. We're just not reusing the product in its exact form. If I drink from this cup, okay, well, it's water, I probably wouldn't wash it, but as a general rule, if you use a reusable item, you still have to process it afterwards to make it ready again for reuse. A plate in my kitchen, it still gets washed. Well, the washing takes energy. That's a process, in the same way that if I used an item and I recycled it and then I used that item again.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the energy of both processes and how much goes to waste. And if we're reducing carbon, that's the end goal.
So there are ways of using a circular economy, just in the way of kind of closing the loop as tight as possible. And so I suppose the kind of key question now is like, what should people actually be doing? And I think it's a really kind of key question. Should we be still advocating for all these supermarkets to cutting down the use of single-use plastics, or things which we view as single-use plastics? Should we be trying to cut plastics out of our life? I think you kind of said at the beginning that that's definitely the case. We should be trying to do that. But how far should people go? How passionate should people be getting about these issues, and what other things can they do?
Well, I think that people should be getting really passionate, but about solving the right issues, and that very passionately espousing that, we get rid of plastic across the board could actually be quite detrimental to a lot of the issues that they care about. Think McDonald's switching from a plastic straw to a paper straw, and then they knew that their paper straw was unrecyclable, took more energy to make, and didn't. So it's just generally a worse product, but they did it because of consumer pressure. Wouldn't it have been better if McDonald's did something that actually helped the environment? Wouldn't it have been better if McDonald's did something that lowered their carbon footprint, or genuinely reduced the amount of waste that they put to waste?
I mean, lots of people would argue with that by saying, they've got paper straws, at least those can biodegrade. I mean,
but they don't biodegrade, because they're, look it up, but they don't biodegrade because they've been wax lined and whatnot. I mean, they'll biodegrade in very specific circumstances, but interestingly, most things that people think of as biodegradable won't even biodegrade in the sea. So like bioplastics, all these bioplastics that everyone's rather excited about, they don't biodegrade at cold temperatures, and therefore without sort of light in the ocean. In fact, lots of the things that people sell as biodegradable will still not biodegrade in the ocean.
Yeah, so I suppose the key is to kind of get educated. We need to kind of get educated about what the real solutions are. We do need to cut out our kind of use of single-use plastics. We do need to learn a little bit more about the circular economy and understand that.
We need to focus on, if your big issue is getting plastic out of the ocean, then focus on where you can really make a big difference. And where you can really make a big difference is thinking about how you can support projects that support waste management in the developing world. Now, it's not a sort of term I like to use, but there are 1.3 billion people in the world that do not have access to waste management bins. Okay, 1.3 billion. This is a figure from Waste Aid. They're a company, an organization, charity actually, that I work with. I was working with them to design recycling machines low-cost recycling machines that they could use in their projects in Africa and Asia. But that is where the problem is coming from, because if you had no bin, if you have no waste management, no one ever comes to pick up your waste. You have three options, okay? It's burn it, bury it, or throw it in a river, or pollute your environment, which is generally the river because it takes it away. Now, those are not good options, and it's not nice for the people that have to make them, because none of them suck, and it's all makes it much worse for their lifestyle, but they are their only options because they live in countries that do not have adequate waste management systems.
Yeah, but their exposure to waste, their creation of waste is tiny, a fraction of like an average US citizen or a UK citizen in terms of waste we produce. I mean, like, you know, how do you balance that?
You're totally right, but we were talking about the issue of ocean plastic, and where does the ocean plastic come from? Well, it doesn't come from the US or the UK.
Yeah.
People have pointed to, you know, some crates that have been shipped over to China, ended up in illegal dumps. But of course, that makes up a tiny fraction of the waste that we as a country produce. It's not like our councils come and collect the stuff from your bins and go dump it off the White Cliffs of Dover. It just doesn't happen. Our waste goes to waste in landfill or being burnt, which I hate. I think that's a complete waste. It's a complete waste of resources, energy, etc. But it doesn't go into the ocean. So what we should be focusing on in the UK is how we can stop our waste from going to waste in terms of recycling. So we should be focusing on implementing the circular economy. Yeah. If we want to tackle ocean plastic, if that's the issue you really care about, stopping it, and there are some really big, you know, things from the effect on marine wildlife to the research that's being done on how particles from the plastic affects coral. It is a huge issue. But if you really want to solve it, start helping with waste management in the developing world. You know, that's where I mean, you know, I'm working on projects to help with, you know, recycling technologies out there, and that's where the focus needs to be, because we can't solve this problem without turning off the tap. If you had a bath that was filling up with water, you wouldn't start trying to fish all of the water out the bath. You turn the tap off, and then you'd stall out the water in the bath. And we need to turn the tap off. We can't go around saying, oh, well, we'll go fish all the plastic out of the ocean until we stopped it going in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in summary, we do need to reduce our use of plastics, but we do need to find ways to go about kind of, I suppose, tackling the flow and the waste management systems in our country, and also looking at how we can do stuff overseas. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we conclude this?
I do. I have an example of what I'm going on about, because I feel that I've done a lot of talking about the problems. It's been largely negative, and actually, you know, really, I feel that there are some really positive things on the horizon, some quite positive solutions. Namely, as I've mentioned, the circular economy. And I want to sort of just delve into that a little bit more and what I'm doing in that area and why that's relevant. So let me move 1 second. So you see this plastic cup.
Filthy plastic cup.
I know, filthy plastic cup. It looks like the absolute devil product at the moment. It's a single-use disposable cup, except it's not single-use, and I would argue actually infinitely reusable. This cup is, I call it the rubbish cup. Well, our business calls it the rubbish cup. It's made from 100% recycled plastic. Mm-hmm. That means I have never paid for any new plastic material to be brought into the world. Yeah. What I've done is I've gone and found plastic waste that already exists from landfill. I mean, we've used post-consumer waste and picked it up from events. We worked with the events industry, and we've been taking the plastic bottles and other plastic cups that people bring on site, taking it away and processing it. We've then made this cup. So we've reduced the amount of waste in the world, and we haven't used any new plastic. Mm-hmm. So that's quite good. And so every time we sell one of these, we're also stopping someone selling one of the other type, because obviously the more people that buy us, the less people that are buying the regular disposables. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now that would be quite good. That would be a good innovation if we just stop there. You know, we've made the system a little bit better. Instead of disposing of virgin plastic cups, we're now disposing of, you know, 100% recycled ones. But we didn't stop there. We thought, all right, well, that's not enough. We want to make sure that these cups never go to waste again. So you can't just buy this cup off me and be gone with it. this cup is sold as part of a full service. So you buy the cup, but you also buy the collection service where we take the cup back and we recycle it back into a new cup. So every business that we work with in the events industry that buys our cups also gets our waste management system, where we gather up all of the cups and other plastic waste on site. And, you know, we can do, with the waste management company that we partnered with, we can do the full extent of waste management or just focus on our cups and PET. And we take that waste and we turn it back into new cups. So we stopped the production of new virgin plastic material. We're stopping our cups from going to waste, and we're trapping it all in one system. Now, the thing is that by using recycled material versus virgin plastic, we reduced the carbon footprint of our product by 68%. Okay? Making the carbon footprint of this cup much, much lower than paper cups, other plastic cups, bioplastic cups, and even reusables. And I don't have time to explain the sort of full modeling behind that, but essentially a reusable cup is thick and heavy plastic, and takes a lot of energy to make and to wash and to transport. And if reused about 80 times, they're pretty good. But of course, the logistical feasibility of getting a reusable cup to be reused that many times at a festival or an event was just impossible. People take them home as souvenirs. The industry average at the moment is a sort of about 35% loss, which means actually a reusable cup can get reused a maximum of 3 times, which is not great. It's very bad from a carbon point of view. Anyway, so our cup is already the lowest carbon cup on the market because of using recycled material and because it's plastic. It's incredibly lightweight. It weighs nothing, and plastic's already a relatively low carbon material. But we again thought that's not enough. We're trying to tackle both the issues of waste and carbon. So we then carbon offset our cup to make it fully carbon neutral. And in fact, actually, because we overestimate these things, carbon positive.
That's very good. So you've got a plastic cup, which most people think would be the devil, which is going out there into events and actually serving us in a very positive way.
It's zero waste and zero carbon. So it's zero plastic pollution and environmental waste and waste of resources, and it's also zero contribution to climate change. And that's what we should be focusing on delivering with all our products.
Marvellous. Well, that's fantastic. Look, Conor, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you so much for contributing to this debate. I hope to get you involved in can the space of single-use plastics be filled next year, and otherwise, I realised I hadn't actually introduced myself. I'm Tom Beckett. I'm the founder and director of Better Century, and I'd like to thank Conor for coming and joining us with this, and also to tell people that you can come and get all the solutions in one place to tackling the climate and ecological crisis. At Better Century, we are seeking to find all the solutions, and we're bringing all the people together who can support one another in helping find the solutions to helping make a better century. So please do come and join. And one more time to Conor, thank you very much indeed, Conor, and we'll sign out here.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, I'd like to fully endorse what Tom's doing at Better Century. I think that bringing people together through collaboration is really, how we're gonna solve this problem. The more heads working to solve the issue, the better. So great to talk to you, and I look forward to next time.